Chapter 2, Fighting Knights. Jay was used to dodging angry shopkeepers and furious bazaar merchants as they watched their precious wares disappear into the hands of the fast-moving thief in the red beanie and purple and yellow vest, so playing tourney was much easier than that. At least he didn't have to dodge rotten tomatoes and threats of dismemberment as he zigzagged his way to the goal, trying to keep away from the red and white striped painted kill zone in the middle of the field. It was a perfect afternoon for practice. The sky a cloudless blue, the trees bordering the field lush and green. The stands were empty save for a few students hanging out with friends or doing homework, and the cheerleaders in their yellow t-shirts and blue skirts were having their own practice by the sidelines. When the ground beneath him began to shake, Jay ignored it and ran left, caught the puck in his stick, and ducked past the loaded cannons, tumbling as he whipped the puck right into the net. He raised his arms in victory, skidding to a stop on his knees just as the rumbling vibration ceased. A slow, satisfied smile grew on his face. His long, dark hair was plastered to his forehead and neck, and sweat drenched his uniform. Earthquakes didn't scare him. Nothing could stop him from running as fast as he could toward a goal. All his life, he'd had to use his fleet feet and lightning-quick reflexes to nab items to fill the shelves of his father's junk shop at the expense of others. But here at Ordon Prep, his talents got him a coveted varsity spot on the tourney team, and Jay was getting so used to riding his teammates' shoulders at the end of every victory that the novelty had almost worn off. Aladdin's son Aziz even teased that Jay should lay off the pumpkin juice a little, or else he'd get too heavy to carry. The cheerleaders practicing on the sideline screamed Jay's name in appreciation. He jumped up and doffed his helmet to them, causing the girls to giggle and shake their pom-poms even faster. Jay was walking over to the sidelines to grab his water from his gym bag when he noticed a crumpled piece of notebook paper among his things. What was this? He opened it up. In purple ink, someone had scrawled, "Run back to where you came from. Return to the Isle of the Lost by moon's end." What was that all about? And what about the moon? Huh? "Hey, man, good play," said Chad Charming. The golden-haired, pampered son of Cinderella usually wasn't very nice to Jay, but maybe there was more to this handsome prince than a head full of carefully coiffed hair. Chad held out his hand. Jay took it a bite suspiciously. "Thanks, man," he said, stuffing the strange note in the back of his pocket. Then again, anyone can score off Herky. Chad laughed, squeezing Jay's palm and nodding toward Hercules' son at the goal. "All brawn but flat feet. Know what I'm saying?" Herky was as strong as his father and had the muscles to prove it, but he wasn't the fastest on the field. Even so, Chad was lucky he wasn't within earshot. "You're saying you could have done it?" asked Jay, his hand still clasped in Chad's grip. "Blindfolded," said Chad, still shaking Jay's hand forcefully up and down and smiling through his teeth. "See, the thing is, Jay, it's easy to dodge a cannon, but in tourney, you've got to watch out for what you never see coming." And with his trademark sneer, Chad twisted his wrist and flipped Jay over, sending him sprawling on the ground face first. "Oof. See what I mean?" Chad smiled. "Consider it a little coaching between friends." "Oh, Chad, you're too hilarious for words," Audrey, who had come up from the sidelines to coot at her boyfriend, tittered. "Hilarious isn't the word I'd use," grumbled Jay, spitting out dirt. Did he say he was tired of being lifted on his team's shoulders? Well, he much preferred that to being thrown on the ground at the feet of an annoying prince. "Are you okay, Jay?" Audrey asked, concerned. "He's fine, babe," said Chad, slinging an arm over her shoulders. The smile on his face was cloying as the pastel sweaters he usually wore. Come on, there's nothing to see here but garbage. Isn't that what you guys used to eat on that island? Our leftovers? Audrey gasped. The poor things. Did they really? That's disgusting. On Charming's honor, said Chad, leading her away. Let's go, princess. Nothing to see here. Chad used to be one of the best players on the team, but not since Jay arrived. The prince wasn't taking his displacement from the starting lineup very well. Jay sighed, looking up at the blue sky. He had traded a life of skulking and thievery to play good guy at Hero Prep. Back on the Isle, Chad wouldn't be laughing quite so smugly if he knew how easily Jay could have swiped his watch, wallet, and keys during that handshake. But Jay was in Ordon now, and they frowned on those things, so he'd left them alone, even though the temptation had been great. It would only get him and his fellow villain kids in trouble, which is what Chad really wanted. Are you planning on lying there forever? The dinner bell's rung, said a voice. He looked up to see Jordan standing above him, holding out a hand. You came out of nowhere. Genie trick. She winked, looking down at him with a hint of a smile. She wore her dark hair up in a swoop, and her blue pantaloons were striking with her yellow leather jacket. She was soon joined by two other girls, the three of them looking concerned over his fall. Jay took Jordan's hand and used it to help himself up. Thanks. Don't worry about Chad. He's like that to everyone. Isn't that right, Allie? Jordan said to the blonde girl standing next to her. The girls nodded. She wore a blue pinafore over a white blouse and had delicate features and a genteel manner. He's almost worse than Tweedledum and Tweedledee. Definitely worse. My dad would have things to say about him, that's for sure, said Jordan, whose father, Jeannie, was a famously talkative fellow. Are you sure you're all right, dude? Nothing bruised but my pride, Jade told them, feeling better already. Then he did us a favor, the third girl laughed, fixing the tiny hat she wore sideways on her head. Freddie Facilier was one of the newer Isle kids who had transferred over as part of the ongoing program to assimilate the villains' kids into the Ordon mainstream. Thanks a lot, Freddie, grumbled Jay. You're welcome, said Freddie. We're not all like Chad, said Jordan. Some of us know that without you guys, all of Ordon would be Maleficent's minions right now. Goblins, said Jay. Maleficent's minions are goblins. That would be awful, said Allie. Green is quite a horrendous color on me. The four of them walked companionably over to the dining hall, bumping into Ben, who was headed the other way. The girls swooned and curtsied at the sight of the young king. You missed practice, said Jay, bumping fists with his teammate. He and Ben worked well together, Jay usually setting up the shots that Ben would send flying into the goal. I know. Next time, I promise, said Ben, looking harried. Coach is on my case. Our defense is really hurting. Offense, too. Yeah, Ben sighed, craning his neck at the tourney fields longingly. Well, you better be back on deck when we play the Lost Boys, Jay said. They were up against a strong Neverland team that weekend. I'll do my best. Jay nodded. It occurred to him while talking to Ben that if his father, Jafar, was in Ordon, he would probably figure out a way to smooth talk Ben into handing over not just the crown, but the entire kingdom, whereas Jay only wanted to play tourney and hang out. Just went to show that sometimes the apple can fall far from the tree, or maybe in his case that the baby cobra can slick away from the nest. He wasn't sure, but he hoped it was true. Hey, Ben said, noticing Jay's face for the first time. Hold on. What happened at practice? Did Chad do that? Jay shrugged. He touched the skin around his eye and felt that it was swollen. It wasn't a tattletale, but Chad must have flipped him harder than he thought. It was an accident. I'm sure he didn't mean for my face to meet the ground that hard. I'll talk to him, said Ben, frowning. Nah, leave it. You've got bigger problems, said Jay. I can deal with Chad. The last thing he needed was Chad telling everyone he had to go running to Prince Ben every time he ate a little dirt. Ben looked as if he wanted to argue. He exhaled. "Fine." "Headed to dinner?" asked Jay, motioning to the dining hall, where the tantalizing smell of Mrs. Potts cooking filled the air. "No, I've got king stuff." "You're lost," Jay teased. "What's the use of being king if you can't even stop for a decent meal?" Ben laughed. "Tell me about it. Catch you guys later?" "Take it easy." "Bye, Ben," the girls called. "Ladies?" asked Jay, leading the group to the building and opening the door for them like the gentleman he was. For a moment, he remembered the anonymous note he'd found in his gym bag earlier and wondered what that was all about. Who wanted him to return to the Isle of the Lost? But he didn't let it bother him too much as the girls fussed over his injuries. Allie promised to brew him a cup of her favorite tea, as well as ask her mother for any of the Mad Hatter's crazy cures. Jordan cheered him up with fanciful stories of traveling via carpet, and how he should really try it for a longer trip sometime, and Freddie suggested ways to get even with Chad. "I'd substitute whipped cream for a tube of his hair gel. That would show him, don't you think?" Jay felt better already. Who cared about a cryptic note telling him he didn't belong in Oregon? And for that matter, who cares about caves full of molten gold and treasures as vast as the eye could see? As he entered the cafeteria in the company of his friends, Jay felt as rich as the Sultan of Agrabah.